There are approximately 7 billion human beings on this planet, and every single human has a different iris, a different thumbprint. We're all unique. I like to practice being as inventive as I can. I think of art as a place where you can experiment. My responsibility as an artist is something akin to a canary in a coal mine, where my job is to be as sensitive as I can be to the world around me and respond to things that I think might be relevant to other people and bring those topics to the table through my work. I try to focus on being true and honest and realistic. A big part of my art practice is about embracing the aberration. Ultimately, that is what we all are. In an astronomical sense, we can think of the Earth itself as an aberration. I was born in Toronto in 1972. When I was 5, my father had some serious legal problems. To avoid his incarceration, we fled the country. We moved to Hawaii, where I grew up and lived in this natural paradise for the majority of my childhood. When I was a teenager, my mother, brother, and I were deported back to Canada. By the time I was 16, I was on my own, and by 18, New York City had become my home. New York City is one of the most densely populated places on the planet. There's a lot of power there. There's a presence of extremes there simultaneously conflicting. And from conflict, there is always this potential, this energy that you can tap into, that you can learn a lot from. When I started my practice as an artist, I started by making paintings and works on paper. What they were essentially renderings of nightmares that I had when I was a kid. The structure of this nightmare is like a never-ending knot of vessels or strings or something. From the negative spaces, these blobs would emerge, and I'd feel like they were going to suffocate me. I'd wake up afraid of the blobs. I thought it would be an interesting practice, personally, to try to render these nightmare landscapes, but subjugate the negative somehow, and turn them into a more inviting place. Transformation is a huge part of what I'm interested in. Transforming energy. Energy doesn't go away, it just changes forms. I was working on a painting in my studio in Brooklyn, and out of the corner of my eye, I kept getting distracted by the way the light from the sun was reflecting on a pile of garbage outside of my studio. What it was comprised of mostly was plastic bottles. I noticed that the curvilinear, diaphanous quality of these bottles was very similar to the shapes that I was working with in my paintings. And maybe it would be more interesting if I tried to create these landscapes in 3 dimensions using this nightmarish material, this debris. It was like a veil was lifted for me. As I created these pieces, I started to learn more about plastic as a polluting material. Working with the plastic bottles really struck me as a nice way to have this idea of taking my personal nightmare and transforming it into something that's not a nightmare. But taking that a step further and having it not just be about the philosophy, but also be about the material. It's a wonderful opportunity to give people space to reflect on their behavior and on their relationship to matter and material that they come across in their daily lives. I was invited to go back to Hawaii by the Waimea Ocean Film Festival and the Sculpt the Future Foundation to create a piece out of plastic debris that washes ashore at Camilo Point. I got to see this place where I grew up being horribly destroyed by plastic debris washing ashore. The ocean was literally spitting up this material that people had thrown away. It's incredible how far some of this material has traveled. This plastic debris that is washing ashore there is from all over the world.
Industrias Plásticas de Colombia.
So this is a global problem, and art is a global language. So it seems very appropriate to me to speak about this through my work. One of the most striking things that I noticed was that the majority of this plastic material is very personal items. Things that individual humans embraced and had in their homes. Things like toothbrushes and hairbrushes and bottles that you put to your lips. That some human somewhere did that, and it somehow ended up in the ocean. It occurred to me that it's really a matter of personal consciousness. I feel like my purpose is to help people reflect inward in terms of their own internal dialogue. I like the idea of helping people recognize how much power they have in the choices they make as consumers and as individuals. I try to practice making the most loving and appropriate choices in my studio. It's about finding the most wonderful aspect of, for example, a piece of junk mail that has a bunch of maybe text that's offensive or assumes that you're in a state of mind that you might not be in when you're reading it, and gleaning that and finding where does it shine, where's the light in this. What happens when the heart forms in a human being is one cell suddenly pulses, and the next time it decides to pulse, all the surrounding cells pulse with it. And then subsequently, each pulse, more cells join in. And to me, that organized fashion in which this muscle that gives us life forms is absolutely key, formally and structurally, in terms of making work that has a life of its own. My process has a lot of different components to it. Typically, there's something that almost anybody can do to help. I like to have it be as open as possible. To me, the art is both personal and universal, and I don't think anybody should be excluded from art. I like the idea of it being a reflection of what it is to be a human being. There's something really appropriate about inviting people to become a part of something that is a part of them. They've provided me with this material to work with, whether directly or indirectly. I feel like I've just scratched the surface of what's possible in terms of intercepting the waste stream as a part of my practice.